Hey guys, it's Dr. Justin Marchegiani here. Hope everyone is having a phenomenal day. We're going to dig in and do a live Q&A session. Before we do, give me a share, give me a thumbs up, hit the bell, and or the subscribe button if you haven't yet. And also head over to thyroidresetsummit.com. Make sure you subscribe for my summit that's going live next month. Lots of great free information. Get access to 30 of some of the best thyroid experts in the country. Give you lots of information, interviewed all by me. So a lot of action items discussed there. So make sure you head over to thyroidresetsummit.com. All right, let's dig in. What's on y'all's minds today? Okay, let's see. Let's dig in. Sarah writes in, I read that chlorophyll can reduce mycotoxins. Is it good to clean your gut and flush out toxins? Well, yeah, it's definitely good to do that. Would chlorophyll be the best bet for that? I mean, a lot of good plant-based nutrition, a lot of good magnesium. Would it be the best thing? I'm not sure it'd be the best thing, but I don't think chlorophyll would also be supportive too, though. Your thoughts on why some people have had success using it to get rid of acne? Magnesium, good nutrition. Hard to say why specifically. Elizabeth writes in, the adrenal tincture I've been taking morning and night has Withania somnifera in there, licorice, holy basil, passion flower, and I need to replace it. Do you have any adrenal supplements to compare? So yeah, Withania is essentially ashwagandha, holy basil. I would do Adrenal Revive in my line, which has ashwagandha, rhodiola, ginseng, and eleuthero. I would do that one there. And then also it depends. If you're having more anxiety or more sleep stuff, then just do a pure ashwagandha. So in my line, that'd be ashwagandha supreme or Adrenal Revive. But Adrenal Revive would be good. Grace wrote in, hey Grace, I started taking progesterone yesterday, 1 drop in the morning, another at night. I've been feeling amazingly stable mood-wise up to this point. Yesterday, I noticed almost an imperceivable irritability / moodiness, and got into an argument with my husband about something that historically triggered me, which hadn't happened in a while. I decided not to take it anymore. Is that okay? Well, it just depends. I mean, if you're at 1 drop, if you did good with 1 drop, I would just keep it there. Did you keep on going up past 1 and then that triggered you and that was an issue above 1? If 1 was good, then I would just keep it at that point that you felt really, really good. So if you went up and you had a problem, just go back down to that point that you were better. All right, hope that makes sense. Let me know, and you can test it out and see how you do. Sandra writes in, I finally made a morning chat. Awesome. Really happy for you to be here. Sandra writes in, I'm 46 years old. I had my last child 5 years ago after a C-section. I had my tubes tied and cauterized. How can this affect my overall health, mood, hormones, etc.? It's a great question. I know there's been some studies on vasectomies where, it's a little bit different. Like that's like the vas deferens. They're basically tied off. It sounds like you had yours more than tied off, cauterized as well. I know there can be potential like pituitary issues where potentially LH or FSH is affected, and then you may have a little less ovary stimulation and hormonal stimulation from that. Really hard to say. I've seen it in guys with vasectomies, and I know I've heard it. I've heard rumors of it with women. I don't have any direct studies or scientific evidence on it, but I mean, it depends. If you had some specific symptoms hormonally or mood-wise, we could look at it. Or if you have any data or lab tests, we could look at it as well. But I would just keep an eye on how you feel. I don't have any specific data, but I've heard things can go a little bit sideways if that happens. Now, the healthier you are and the more you're doing the right thing, is a good chance that that may not even be a problem with you. But just keep an eye on it. And if you have more specific feedback on how you're feeling, that may be helpful. But again, it could be from other things too. So I wouldn't worry about it too much. You don't really have a lot of control over that, but I'd worry about all the things you can do diet-wise, lifestyle-wise. And if you have any issues, look at getting a hormone panel done, especially right in that luteal phase around day 20. If you're still cycling, will be smart. Jack JMC writes in, hey, Dr. J, can you tell me why pregnenolone and DHEA make me feel more anxious and nervous and I take just 1 drop? Well, it's possible that you're just making more cortisol with the pregnenolone. More than likely, it's the pregnenolone that's making you feel nervous. But if you're feeling nervous with 1 drop, I would just put 1 drop in a glass of water and then just sip that throughout the day. It's probably not the DHEA, but you can come off it and then reintroduce both 1 at a time to make sure you've isolated the variables, and put 1 in a glass of water. Some people are just more sensitive in general, and if that's you, we just got to dial the dose down. And I always tell patients, if that's the case, you're going to be a cheap date. So it's not necessarily a bad thing. Just figure out the dose that works best for you. Oliver writes in, is xanthan gum okay to consume in small amounts? Probably. I mean, if you have SIBO or bacterial overgrowth and you get bloated afterwards, probably not so much. But if you can tolerate it and you're not getting overly bloated, that's good. You wrote in, same question, same person, you say to consume less than 25 grams of fructose per day from fruit. I mean, that's on average. Again, if you're healthy and you're not insulin resistant, you could probably do a little bit more. Is it okay to consume all 20 grams in one meal? I prefer backloading at night. Yep, I don't have a problem with that. That's cool. Lana writes in, is it okay to take colloidal silver same time as probiotics? Well, I mean, in generally, like the first, the fourth hour of my GI clearing program, that's the removing the infection. So the fourth hour is removed, the fifth hour is repopulation. So typically we're pulling a lot of the herbals out once we go into the fifth hour. Now, if we're doing a second round of killing, we'll typically leave probiotics in the whole time. So if kind of you're on your second round of killing and you're still doing killing and you want to keep probiotics in there at the same time, I think that's totally fine. Elizabeth writes in, how many capsules of Adrenal Revive and how frequently throughout the day? I would do 2 capsules, 1 to 2 capsules, 3 times throughout the day. You may feel overly stimulated or just having too much support at 6. So anywhere between 3 to 6 tends to be really good. Some people get a little bit overly energized. So feel it out the first, the first 2/3 of the day. And make sure that last time you take it's probably around 3 to 4. So it's not energizing you too much. All right, let me keep on rolling in here. Awesome. Heidi Lee writes in, my aunt tells me that you should always drink a lot of water after a chiropractic adjustment. Is that true? I mean, I think it's always good anytime you get any soft tissue work to get to make sure you're hydrated, just because you're really moving the lymph and you can stimulate a lot of things kind of being cleared in the body. So I think, the solution to pollution is dilution. So that's always a good idea. Fab Music writes in, hey, Dr. J, greetings from Los Angeles. Excellent. Is H. pylori 100% curable or only controllable? I think it's definitely curable. I think we can knock it out. I've seen it hundreds of times. I'm confident with that. Akbar writes in, how is D-lactic acid produced in the gut? Wouldn't lactobacillus-based probiotics such as ProBioflora further exacerbate the production of D-lactic acid? Yeah, typically you're going to see a lot of D-lactate in people that have a significant amount of bacterial overgrowth and are taking probiotics. So that's why we want to do the 4th R, remove and clean out the gut, and then do higher quality bifido and lactobacillus species. And if someone is still bloaty or gassy after that, we would add in spore-based probiotics instead. But typically clearing out the bad gut bacteria helps lower a lot of that D-lactate and makes it less likely to form again when we give probiotics in the future, because we've done a lot of weeding before we have dropped down the seed, so to speak. Let me jump over to Facebook real quick. Julie writes in, can you talk about the best time to take vitamin D and what's the acceptable level to be at on blood work? I think 50 to 70 is great. If you have an autoimmune condition, maybe you go 70 to 100. I think the morning time makes the most sense, because think about it, right? You're only going to make vitamin D when you're exposed to light. So take it during hours of sunlight. Hope that helps. What do you recommend for prostate health? Example, benign prostate hypertrophy. Well, it depends what the cause of it is. So, I mean, of course, I'd always start at the diet and lifestyle and inflammation component. There's a big insulin resistance component with prostate issues. And I would also look at using some potential herbs such as saw palmetto and pumpkin seed and zinc and lycopene and selenium. These are all helpful compounds, but you have to get to the actual root underlying cause of why the prostate went off to begin with, or why it got inflamed to begin with. Do you know anything about ACE redox signaling molecules? No, not. I've heard about it, but not so much. Is it okay to do a CT scan? Any harmful radiation? Well, yeah, there's a lot of harmful radiation. It just depends. If you got in a car accident or you bumped your head and you're, concerned about a hematoma or some kind of brain bleed or some kind of internal issue, yeah, then the risk of, the radiation is, the risk of not finding something is going to outweigh any of the radiation detriment. So yeah, it just depends. If you're just doing it for fun, I would stay away from it for sure. MRI would probably be better, less radiation. Alamo writes in, been treating my rabbit's eye infection with silver, but it keeps flaring back. Any ideas? So if you're doing silver, that's good, and it's still not clearing out. I mean, if that's the case, you may have to do some antibiotic drops. I mean, the nice thing about antibiotics, if you're doing it liquid wise, drop wise, that's at least better because it's topical. It's right there. I want to know what the issue is, why the infection happened to begin with. Any feedback on that? I would get a little bit more data on that, make sure the root cause of that's fully addressed. But you're doing silver. I can't think of too much to do. I mean, you can't really do any herbal stuff in the eyes. I would just probably look at shifting to an antibiotic or a steroid if you need in the meantime. At least it's topical, so it's hitting the exact area versus going to the gut. But hopefully that will help over time. I would look at getting a more potent silver, maybe a nano silver, see how that goes. Besides a raw plant diet, would you recommend a supplement herbs for lupus? Well, number one, I wouldn't recommend a raw plant diet. Honestly, I would recommend an autoimmune template. There's still a lot of anti-nutrients in plants that could still be irritating for the gut and still exacerbate leaky gut. So, of course, I'm concerned that leaky gut is exacerbating the autoimmune issue. So I would look at an autoimmune template. And if you have any digestive issues, I probably wouldn't do raw either because there's more harder to digest fibers and more anti-nutrients and lectins and phytates and oxalates and things that are harder on your gut lining if it is raw. So if you have any digestive issues, definitely not. And I would really move to an autoimmune template. Now you can still do a lot of plants on an autoimmune template, right? That's not the issue. We're just cutting out grains, legumes, and dairy, nuts, seeds, nightshades, and eggs, and really making sure those foods are cooked better if we're having a hard time. Judy S. writes in, I'm on a protocol to get rid of cyclospora. Should I take binders too? Well, if we're doing the ginger tea, that may be enough to kind of help flush things out and to help your lymphatics. If you're having any die-off symptoms, Judy, then you could add in some activated charcoal. Just take it 2 to 3 hours after food, 1 hour before. Elizabeth writes in, I have read mixed findings on eating fruit and red meat in the same meal. Thoughts? Yeah, I mean, the whole idea is just that the enzymes that are needed for fruit, the fruit gets digested really fast in the stomach. Essentially, the meat takes longer and holds up the fruit. So the fruit should kind of go in there, be eaten by itself so it can be moved to the stomach faster into the small intestine. When you eat meats, it can supposedly slow it down a little bit. And if you have some fructose malabsorption issues or some bacterial stuff, you may get bloated, you may get gassy. My recommendation is don't worry about it unless you're significantly noticing gas and bloat and burping and digestive issues when you eat fruit with other proteins and fats. If you're not noticing it, it's not a big deal. Your body can handle it. If you are noticing it, you can have some fruit 20 minutes, 30 minutes before you eat your actual protein-based meal, and that may be okay. Or you can wait an hour after as well. That may be okay as well. Fab Music writes in, Dr. J, I forgot to add, is there any reason why I sometimes feel anxious after taking Coral Calcium, 1,600 milligrams a night? Well, that's a lot of calcium. I would not be doing that much calcium. If you're doing calcium, I do only a couple hundred milligrams, and I would be taking some magnesium with it, and that probably solve your problem. Lakshmi writes in, I'm a 48-year-old male due to my AS. I'm going to guess that's ankylosing spondylitis. Could be wrong. I have shoulder pain, joints possibly due to which I don't get proper sleep. Any suggestions? Well, you have an autoimmune condition, so you got to get the autoimmune template moving. Liz writes in, what are your thoughts on colonoscopies and endoscopies? Are they harmful? My mom is scheduled to get one soon, and I had an issue last time. Her spleen ruptured. So I typically do not recommend colonoscopies or endoscopies at all. There's a study on this recently. Lots of side effects. 50% of people have some type of negative effect due to the colonoscopy. The nature of the devices and the scopes that go, whether it's up your colon or down your mouth, they don't really get sterilized well. I mean, if you look at like a scalpel or a surgical tool, there's a higher degree of sterilization that happens with those tools, right? They go into various devices that are used to sterilize. Now, those devices can't be used the same way when there's a scope or an electronic scope to it because the technology is more sensitive. So supposedly there's some research out there showing that you cannot sterilize these devices the same way. So there still may be bacteria and debris from the previous patients before you in these scopes. So my recommendation with the scopes is you really need to have some significant reason to be looking, whether it's active ulceration bleeds, cancers, significant IBD that needs visualization. But if it's just a run-of-the-mill checkup or there's not anything significantly serious to look for or risk factor, then I would use a gut test that's going to be a little bit more, that's going to be a lot more non-invasive and will give us a lot of data on inflammation, immune activation, and infections. Sandra writes in, Dr. J, what's your opinion on diatomaceous earth food grade? Been taking it for a week in the AM, 1 tablespoon in water. We'll keep doing it for 2 weeks, then again, off and on. Food grade, it's really good. I mean, it's very high in silica and it can help with worms. Just take it away from food and supplements. It can be very dehydrating, so take it away and make sure you get enough water. Liz writes in again, she has macular degeneration. Any recommendations on supplements, herbs? I have her taking astaxanthin. Yeah, so in general, you can add in more lutein from egg yolks. That's always good as well. You can also add in a herb called bilberry. Bilberry is excellent, provides really good antioxidants. You can also add in, into the G, ginkgo. Ginkgo biloba is also really good. There's another herb called eyebright, but a lot of companies have like eye formulas. So I would look at a really good eye formula and make sure it has a bunch of those herbs and nutrients, of course, vitamin A as well. Okay, let me keep on rolling, guys. Dr. J, your favorite cereal brand as a kid? Is there an alternative today? Oh man, I think as a kid, it probably would have been Honey Nut Cheerios, maybe. And again, I haven't done any Cheerios or any cereal in like, I feel like it's been 2 decades. So in general, I mean, I don't know if there's a really good option for a cereal. I mean, I know there's some ones that are like more fibrous and have more nuts and seeds in it. I've seen some really good nuts and seed ones. My wife does a paleo oatmeal that's just a lot of nuts and seeds in it and coconut flakes. That's probably your better option. I don't think there's anything in mainstream though right now that I've seen, but I also don't shop in those aisles too much. And like for my son just has like sausage and bacon, or sausage and eggs in the morning, bacon and eggs. So kind of a protein or fat. Worst case, we'll do something like a nice collagen smoothie, something simple too, but those are his kind of big go-tos. Akimo writes in, is it okay to eat animal fats from factory raised animals high in omega-6 if organic meat is not available? Yeah, if that's your best bet, Akbar, I know you're in India. If that's all you have as an option, then that's what you have. You just got to do your best. But if you can at least get something that's free range or at least hormone free, even though it's not organic, that's still a good step in the right direction. My rabbit suffers with malocclusion, and when his teeth grow, it seems to get worse. We keep having them trimmed. He's too old to have his teeth out. Yeah, that's tough. I would really make sure you go see a holistic vet, though, just so you can get a good perspective on all your options. If you see a conventional vet, you may not have all the options at your fingertips. But yeah, hopefully you guys can continue to stay on top of that. Coals of Fire writes, and Dr. J, my GI map came back, no H. pylori, but blastocystis hominis was high, and possibly SIBO, waiting for a breath test on that. How should I approach this? Can I treat both at once? Yeah, you could treat SIBO and blasto at once. There's a lot of crossover with a lot of those herbs. You just want to make sure you're addressing everything and you have a good sequence. So in my line, we're doing 6. In my line, we are doing the 6 R's. So removing the bad foods, replacing enzymes and acids, repairing the gut lining, removing the infection, re-inoculation, repopulation, good bacteria, retest. Grace wrote in, I was triggered by 1 drop. Is that 1 drop in water? And the day before that, you were pretty good. I mean, I would give it a try again and see if it's something, if there's a connection with it. But go back to 1 drop in water and see how you do with that. If not, we'll just use the herbals instead. Okay, keep an eye on it. And is that 1 drop total throughout the day in water? That's really important. If you're doing 1 drop in your mouth at once versus 1 drop in water that's sipped throughout the day, those are 2 different things. So make sure you do the water one first. Julie writes in, my mom is diabetic, so tries to follow a low carb, but also has vascular issues, which they say she should go low fat. So how should she be eating, low carb or low fat? Definitely not low fat, okay? Because there's an unspoken thing here. Once you go low fat, you also tend to go high carb. And we know that higher carbohydrates increase refined sugar, increased carbs. The carbs all break down to sugar anyway, and increased sugar is going to cause increased glycation, which is going to damage her vascular tissue, right? That causes advanced glycation end products, AGEs for short. So definitely do not want to do that. I'm appalled at the conventional advice that's on the dietary side that's given to people. That's really sad that they're basically telling her to do the thing that caused her eyes or her vascular issues to get bad in the first place. Why does using apple cider vinegar deplete the body of potassium? If so, is it enough to cause harm? I'm not sure it does deplete the body of potassium. I'm not sure of that. I mean, apple cider vinegar is acetic acid, and it does flush out guanidine, which is a byproduct of protein metabolism. And it does mobilize minerals. So I'm not sure that it does do that. Would it be late to drink a green tea, say early evening time around 5 p.m.? Give it a try, see how you feel. As long as you're not having your sleep disrupted at 10 or 11, you're probably okay. Green tea has a lot of L-theanine in it, which also convert over to GABA, so it can also have some calming and relaxation effects. Sometimes the L-theanine will counteract any of the smaller amount of caffeine that's there. So test it out. What do you think about phosphatidylserine for brain fog and natural ginseng for energy? I mean, I love phosphatidylserine. I actually use phosphorylated serine, and it does help sensitize the hypothalamus to cortisol, so it can help relax and lower cortisol. Ginseng may be more of an upper, more of an energizer, where phosphorylated serine is more of a relaxer. Liz writes in again, thank you, Dr. J. I'm full of questions today. Another cure for rosacea on the cheeks or nose. Rosacea tends to have an autoimmune component. So look at the foods, look at the diet. So grains, autoimmune template as a starting point tends to be best with that. What are the causes and treatments for Pemphigus dyshidrotic eczema? Okay, so eczema. So in general, first thing with eczema is you want to look at the diet. There's an autoimmune component with eczema. So look at the diet, look at your digestion. There's some decent topical stuff online on Amazon. There's a couple of really good products. I use one called the Mother of All Creams, which is good. That's by Perea. There's a couple other good ones out there that are really helpful, but you have to get to the root cause as well. You're welcome, Molly Mo. Jessica Lynn writes in, hey, Doc, how do you feel about vaping? I'm sure you have answered this in the past, but a lot of my family members vape. I mean, I don't think it's the best thing, but I mean, it's like, all right, if you're smoking, is smoking better or worse than vaping? Smoking is definitely worse because of a lot of the heterocyclic amines that happen in the burning and the incineration process of lighting the cigarette or whatever. So I think vaping is definitely a lot better. You can also do a lot of quality control on the vape solution. So just make sure there's no like propylene glycol. Try to make sure it's organic and clean as possible. And you can do that with some of the vape solution. So I think if it's a choice between vaping or smoking, definitely vaping, and just make sure you buy a higher quality amount, especially if people are trying to get off. You can at least get the nicotine in there. You could do it in your house and you're not putting a whole bunch of toxins out into your house or in your body from the incineration process. So I do like that. Moon Goddess writes in, hey, Dr. J, ever since I had Lyme disease, I can't wear earrings. They smell and turn red, even the gold ones. Yeah, I mean, you're just having a lot of immune sensitivity. It's called TILT, tolerance in loss of toxicity. So your immune system's hypersensitive. So you really want to make sure that you're fixing the gut issues, your diet's good, you're doing everything to make sure gut permeability is under control. Make sure if you're doing the Lyme, if you're going to do anything longer term, try to make sure it's herbal. If they're going to do some shorter term antibiotics for something, fine. But I recommend don't get involved with an ILAD doc that's going to be doing long-term antibiotics. If you're going to be doing anything longer term, make sure it's more herbal so you're not wiping out a lot of your good bacteria in your gut. Addie writes in, Dr. J, can you touch on higher androgens and ovarian cysts? What's the best treatment? Yeah, Addie, go check out my video from yesterday. I did a whole video on this topic. It was about 15 minutes long. So check out yesterday's video. But in general, insulin resistance, okay, gut inflammation, adrenal dysfunction, and estrogen dominance are going to be the big things. But insulin is going to be a big driving factor of increasing androgens. It's also going to it's going to increase prolactin and throw off your cycle. But check out yesterday's video. Coals of Fire wrote in, Dr. J, I'm searching for the products on your website. What would I look for blastocystis and SIBO? Well, it just depends. If that's the only thing that's going on, typically in my line, we would do GI Clear 4 for the blasto and then GI Clear 1 for the SIBO. And it depends what else is going on. There's other herbs we may throw in to help on top of that. Jessica Lynn writes in, thanks. Besides its additive effects, is nicotine harmful? I don't think nicotine is necessarily harmful. I know it does increase dopamine. So if I have people trying to get off cigarettes or those kind of things, I'll use amino acids to support dopamine like tyrosine or L-Dopa. In my line, we'll use Dopa Replete or Dopa Replete Plus, and we'll give extra amino acids to help. But I don't think nicotine itself is harmful at all. It's going to be a lot of the incineration, the polyaromatic hydrocarbons, the heterocyclic amines through the incineration process. And also, the big issue is too, when you're getting nicotine from like tobacco that's given a whole bunch of pesticides, you're also getting a lot of that in there too. So the nice thing about a vape is you can get it from organic sources where, you know, if you're smoking a pack of Marlboros or Camels, you know those aren't organic, right? Rhonda Westerfield wrote in, I'm using sea salt. Do I need to supplement with iodine? If so, how much? I wouldn't worry about that personally. I don't like to give extra iodine just because of potential autoimmunity. But I would make sure you're doing a high quality sea salt. I like the Redmond's Real Salt. I think it's phenomenal. Lots of good minerals in there. Let me jump over to Facebook real fast here. Jeanette writes in, you said no low fat, and doctor says that the liver cleanse necessary for older ones. I'm 56. What do you suggest? I mean, number one is make sure you're eating good fats and cholesterol, because that actually causes the gallbladder to contract and constantly release that bile that's made by the liver. And that's going to be very helpful for your liver as well. People that actually go lower fat, all that, the bile salts sit there and they crystallize and they can create stones. So by not eating good fats and good cholesterol, you can put more stress on your liver. Heidi writes in, are you accepting new patients? Will you accept past functional medicine tests, or do I have to start all over with you? I do accept new patients. And regarding testing, yeah, if it's within a year, well, you can definitely use a lot of that information. And if it's not, we'll still look at it and kind of get a sense of where you're at from a starting place. Hope that helps. Okay, here, where am I at? How can I ease cervical osteoarthritis? We'll get to the root cause of what caused the osteoarthritis. Osteoarthritis means bone inflammation, joint bone inflammation. So what caused it? Bad posture, poor diet, inflammation, muscles not working in and around the cervical joint to support and stabilize. Lots of people that have joint issues, their muscles aren't working. So seeing a really good applied kinesiologist to make sure your muscles are turned on, and seeing a good chiropractor to make sure the movement's dialed in and that you're doing things to help your posture. Good app you can get, it's called Upright, and kind of give you some good posture awareness. Get a stand desk so you can stand during the day, and or just a really good office chair that has good lumbar and cervical support so you're in good posture throughout the day. You're welcome, Addie. Savvy writes in, thank you. One more question. My stomach/bowel is very noisy shortly after eating and extremely noisy and rumbly. When I need to empty my bowels, any solutions to calm the noise? I mean, it's normal to have some borborygmi. That's the technical word for that. But in general, you want to just look at what you're doing. If your food's off, that could be a problem. If you don't have good stomach acid or enzymes, that could be a problem. If you're eating inflammatory foods, that could be a problem. So a lot of potential vectors that could be an issue there. Hard to say. How about SAMe for depression or for dopamine? Yeah, I mean, SAMe is great. It's a sulfur compound, and we need sulfur to recycle our dopamine. So I have no problem with that. Yeah, so if you had a car crash with the cervical osteoarthritis, make sure you see a good chiropractor to make sure those muscles are turned off. A lot of times you have what's called the sprain strain, and the Golgi tendon is stretched, and it can turn off a lot of these deep cervical muscles. And then these muscles are kind of stabilizers for that, for the neck joint. So you really want to make sure those are on. Paul writes in, what's your number one health complaint, Dr. J? I mean, I think right now I do pretty good. I mean, I get about 7 hours of sleep a night. So maybe I go to bed a little too late. I'll sleep typically from midnight to 7. I probably should be sleeping like from 11 to 7. So probably my biggest issue is just being a little bit more disciplined and getting to bed a little bit earlier, I'd say. But symptom-wise, I feel like I'm doing pretty good. But I definitely, an extra hour of sleep allows me to feel a lot better though. Akimo writes in, can we tolerate non-organic dairy if gut health is in order? It depends. Not everyone. I don't do well with non-organic dairy. And again, it depends how you define non-organic dairy. Are we talking butter? Or are we talking cheese and milk? Cheese and milk, higher amounts of casein and lactose, potentially a problem. Butter and or ghee, right? Very low levels of casein and lactose, much higher in fat, tends to be easier to process. So it depends which one of those you're dealing with. Definitely better to do organic because a lot of hormones and junk are given to conventional cows in making of the dairy. Paul writes in, after GI clear, my stomach is finally digesting. Great to hear, Paul. That's awesome. Very good. Grace, I hadn't put it in water yet. How do I do that? Read the supplement reaction protocol. But basically, you're going to put 1 drop in water, and you're going to sip that water bottle throughout the day. That's in the supplement reaction protocol sheet at the bottom for sensitive patients. All right, I think I hit all my questions. There was one more I think I missed by, nope, I think I hit everything. All right, guys, any other questions, let me know. If not, I'm going to jump on board with my next patient. We'll dive in. Yeah, so you took 1 drop in the morning and 1 drop at night. So just start with 1 drop in water for the whole day. So you're doing 2 drops total. So do 1 and then put it in water, which will essentially allow you to time release it throughout the day. So by doing a sip of it, let's say 10 sips throughout the day, that's like 1/10 of a drop, 1/10 of a drop, 1/10 of a drop. So you're kind of time releasing it and making it go lower and slower. It sounded like you had one good day, so I would just dose back a bit and see how we do. And if that works good, then you can keep on adding drops to the water and then just gently sip it throughout the day. Is melatonin okay to take every night? I wouldn't want you to take it every night. If that's your only option to go to sleep, fine, but I'd want to get you off it by using other nutrients to help make your own melatonin, but I would not want to be relying upon that every night. I think it's great to do coming off the weekend or coming off of time zone shifts or just being up later for a few nights in a row and you want to reset your cycle. That's fine, but I would not do it every night. Judy writes in, I seem to have pulled a muscle in my back between my ribs and kidney. Should I apply heat or cold? I mean, typically if it's an acute issue, cold has an anti-inflammatory effect, but you really want to go see a good myofascial release massage person to work that muscle out and to get those adhesions out and working better. All right. Any other questions, guys? What do you think? Do we answer everyone's questions today? It was great connecting with y'all. You check out Facebook here. All right, make sure you subscribe over to the Thyroid Reset Summit, thyroidresetsummit.com. Appreciate everything. Put comments down below. If I didn't get a chance to answer your question or you check this video out after the fact, put your comments down below. I want to know what you think. I want to know more topic ideas. And I look forward to engaging with you guys down in the comment section. You guys have a phenomenal day, and I will be back next week. All right, take care. Bye.